amazing viewers. Thank you so much for joining me on my program once again. I appreciate you wherever you are connecting from. If you have not subscribed to my channel, please kindly subscribe to my channel. Click the notification bell so that you'll be notified each time I upload a video. You will be among the first to receive it. Thank you so much and remain blessed.
I mean, he has a right under the law, so a lot of people would think. But on that premise, do you think that the former president cannot run in 2023?
Well, by virtue of the fourth alteration, number 17 of 2017, which provides that a person who was sworn in, to complete the term of another person in office is only entitled to contest once after that. In other words, you can only be sworn in twice. Some of my colleagues have said that provision is not retrospective, with profound respect. It is retrospective and not prospective.
All right. Retrospective, so that a lot of people who are watching now, we want to break it down and make it as understandable to our viewers as much as possible. The law was made consequent upon the death of former President Umaru Yar'Adua, the amendment of that clause, isn't it?
No.
The fourth alteration came afterwards.
It was not President Yar'Adua that alone died in office. No. I think there was a governor of
Kogi State who won an election and the
governor. That's a bit different. It was the governor of I think Taraba.
Yeah.
Died in a plane crash.
Yes.
Somebody completed his term. Now the point is, and the point the law is making is, if you spend a year or 2 or 3 or almost 4 having replaced somebody who died in office or who resigned or impeached, can you contest twice in a way that you spend 11, 12, 9, 10, 11, 12 years as a president or governor? The Constitution says no. You can only spend 8 years, maximum, 2 terms. You may spend less, but not more. President Jonathan was sworn in as president on the 5th of May, 2010. So he spent a year before he contested in 2011 and won the election. So he's done 5 years already. He's therefore disqualified from contesting another election for a 4-year term. That means he will spend 9 years in office. Now, people are saying, oh, the law will only take effect when it was made in 2017. I will have been persuaded to go along with that argument. But in the case of Toyin Obayori and Musa, Toyin Obayori and PDP, the Supreme Court held that alteration, fourth alteration, number 21 of 2017, which came into force in 2018, affected the pre-elections that were filed in 2015. In this case, in these 2 cases, the appellant filed his pre-election cases in 2015. This law came into force 3 years later. And we tried to convince the court that the law cannot be retrospective. And the Supreme Court said no. An amendment of a constitution can be retrospective. And in this case, it took effect from 2015. And since the petition was not filed, those petitions were not filed before or within 14 days, they are deemed to be illegal. And therefore, the appeals arising from them
All right.
are a nullity. So now that is so. That's all.
And I like to.
So the other point is that there are decisions of the Supreme Court. In the case of Ladoja and INEC, the case of Marwa and Yaku, where the Supreme Court has said that no governor can spend more than a cumulative period of 8 years in office. It may be less, but it can never be more, even by 1 day.
Does it affect the presidency?
Of course, because in the case of Governor Ladoja, he was out for 11 months. I mean, he was fighting his impeachment, and he won after 11 months. So he went back to court. I need to spend extra 11 months, and the Supreme Court said no. You can spend less, but you cannot spend more than 8 years. In the case of Marwa and Yaku, some governors, I think about 5 of them, had their elections annulled after 2-3 years. And they said they were entitled to begin afresh. And the Supreme Court said no. Because that would mean you remain in office for 11 years. If you win twice, thereafter. And therefore, that is not, that is against the letter and spirit of the Constitution.
All right. So let me, because I know that the position of the Supreme Court is a subsidiary to the position of the Constitution.
No, the position of the Supreme Court is the law of the land,
yes,
interpreting the Constitution.
But I'm thinking that the Constitution is the supreme law of the land.
Of course.
It's a ground norm.
Oh, yes.
So whatever position of the Supreme Court or any other court
must be in line with the Constitution.
So let's look at what the Constitution says. Let's begin with Section 137, which provides the premise on which you said President Jonathan cannot. So 137 is saying that a person who was sworn in to complete a term for which another person was elected as president shall not be elected to such office for more than a single term. Now, Section 135 says, I mean, where it provides the tenure where anybody can be in office. It says, subject to the provision of this Constitution, a person shall hold the office of president until, so Section 2 says, subject to the provision of Section 1 of this section, the president shall vacate his office at the expiration of a period of 4 years commencing from the day. And he gave a long list of so when we wonder, it was 4 years that was captured. I mean, 8 years was not captured really. Can you explain what that means?
Also, there furthermore that you are entitled to recontest, and if you are elected, you do additional 4 years. But you cannot do more than 8 years cumulatively. 2 terms of 8 years.
I'm trying to find where exactly that is being captured, because the only place I found was in this subsection 135. I mean, subsection 2 of section 135. This is a Constitution. Maybe you can find it for us, but that's the only place, because a lot of people will wonder whether, I mean, it's fair on former President Jonathan to be disenfranchised, because it is his right as a citizen to vote and be voted for. So it wasn't his fault that former President Yar'Adua died in office. And it was incumbent on him to take over from him after he died in office.
Now, once you take over, you need to get the argument and complain the tenure of somebody else, which may be for 1, 2, 3, almost 4 years. The position of the law is that will count subsequently. And if you look at section 135, subsection 2A, which was added, right?
Yes, sir.
In 2017, which is that where a rerun election has taken place, right? And you win. The Constitution is saying that the time spent in office before the date of the election was annulled shall be taken into account. So you can't say, oh, I spent 3 years in office, it was annulled, therefore I want to start afresh. In like manner, if you spend 1, 2, or 3 years to complete the term of somebody else, the Constitution is now saying you can only do 4 years thereafter. You can only contest for a term thereafter and not 2 terms. Because that would mean you are spending more than 8 years, which is the maximum recognized by the Constitution. That's the law. So there are two issues here. Even if you agree that Section 137, subsection 3 cannot be retrospective, the Supreme Court has also interpreted other provisions of the Constitution to the effect that nobody can spend more than 2 terms in office. And that would mean 8 years maximum.
Why do you think that this is coming up now? It didn't come up in 2019 because the former president...
It came up in 2017. This law was made in 2017.
No, but he wanted to run in 20...
And this argument had been canvassed.
In 2019, he ran and...
Some people raised the point then, but it wasn't taken seriously.
Why do you think he's stronger now? Why do you think that point is stronger now?
I think it's stronger now because people want to ensure that we operate under the rule of law. And so whoever is dissatisfied with this interpretation may have to approach the court.
What is
and you will have to battle with existing authorities. I give you another one. In the case of Balongu, an attorney general of Anambra State, following the annulment of the election of Governor Chris Ngigi, the legislators in the state went to court to say the proclamation of the House by Ngigi has become annulled, void. Therefore, allow us to spend more, a longer period than required by the... And the Supreme Court said no. Notwithstanding the annulment, your proclamation is not affected. Because to have interpreted the Constitution other way will have extended the tenure of the legislators beyond the contemplation of the Constitution.
What legal remedy is available now for the former president under the law? Can he seek the advice and interpretation of the law from of the Constitution from the Supreme Court, for example?
No, it has to start from the High Court. It has to start from the
to seek a permission to be able to run.
Only the federal government, state government, and the National Assembly can approach the Constitution in case of a dispute of this nature. So we have to start from the federal High Court.
I mean, if you were to advise him, give him a legal advice, that is what he needs to do. Or what would you say he should not run? Or would you say go to the court and get...
This is the position of the law.
Okay.
But it's not just President Jonathan alone. There are others who were even acting governors for 3 months.
So does he affect those who are acting governors too? Because they were not substantive governors.
No, they were acting governors in the office of the governor. But
they were not substantive.
As far as the Constitution is concerned, the 3-month period will have to be reckoned with, have to be factored. If you are going to calculate how long such people were in office. That's the law today.
All right. It's quite interesting, though. But one angle that one will wonder that is happening is, should a political party field former President Jonathan? What do you think is the legal implication of that?
Of course, their opponents will go to court to have the election, challenge the legal validity of the election. So it would be too much of a risk without having to have a definitive pronouncement on this matter. Those who are bent on fielding, the former president or former governors, and there's nothing new here. If you look at, I think Section 302 of the Constitution on transition, right? Those who were elected before the 1999 Constitution, under previous constitutions, cannot say, oh, I was a governor for 4 years under the previous constitution, so I can do additional 2 under this new constitution.
Interesting. So a legal redress will be go to the High Court possibly and get some kind of...
I'm sure, in fairness to the former president, I think he did say that he was consulting, and I'm sure he's looking at the political implications of his choice as well as the legal implications. And I'm sure at the end of the day, it will be properly advised. Well, this is not a legal opinion you can just brush aside
and test it in
having regards to the decisions of the Supreme Court on the matter.
Senior Advocate, I'd like you to listen to the Speaker of the House, because it's yet another very intriguing and quite interesting matter, which is that of the 7 ministers and what the Electoral Act says. We caught up with the Speaker of the House of Representatives in London. It's an unofficial assignment. And my colleague, Juliana Olayinka, for Channel Television, was speaking with him. We started by asking him the issue of the Electoral Act, section 82, I think, and what the implication is for 7 ministers like Rotimi Amechi, Chris Ngige, and Emeka Wajuba. This is a response of the Speaker. I
think it's fair to say that the security situation in Nigeria is not abating. What collective responsibility do Parliament have in ensuring the safety of Nigerians?
When you have a situation you have in Nigeria, anywhere in the world, whether you're actively involved or not, as long as you're Parliament, you must share it. You must share the blame. You go, you share the wins, and you share the losses, the good and the bad. So, in that regard, yes, definitely, we'll share the blame. But having said that, I believe Parliament has done everything and is still doing more that it needs to do. I don't know that there's any Parliament that has in the world that has debated an issue or flogged an issue like this House has. Every single day of sitting, we talk about this. There are motions and resolutions of the House. The replacement of the service chiefs some time ago was based on the pressure mounted by members of the House on a daily basis. The House at one point asked the President to come in and brief the House so that we could all share and give different perspectives. The House had a security summit some time ago. For 5 days, we collated views from all over, experts, traditional chiefs, international, and we laid out our action plan, legislative action and executive action. We've submitted certain bills to that regard, and there's still some things to be done as of yet. I believe this government has done a lot. But unfortunately, we're fighting an unconventional war.
Many of our viewers would say that the APC have failed to deliver on their campaign promises. Is that a fair statement?
Let me be very clear. This government has delivered, for me, in my opinion, more than any government in recent history in terms of infrastructural development, which is what you need to boost your economy. But for some reason, and then we have social programs that have never been done, very bold social investment programs, but which you and I do not know about because you and I are not beneficiaries. And this is for these programs are for the lower ebb of the society, and they are beneficiaries, and they are extremely happy in that regard. But you and I, the average and the elite, don't know anything about that. And the government has not advertised or publicized that the way they should. That's number one. Number two, Rome was not built in a day. This is where I now come in and say what this government inherited and what this government has been able to do with the very lean resources. There was a reason for every law. There's a raison d'etre. There's a reason why you make laws, and that particular provision had a reason behind it. It had a mischief that it sought to cure, and I think we all know what that mischief was. But some appointees have resigned their appointment to seek election, and some remain obstinate, for want of a better word, and hide under the cover that there's a court decision pending and that has nullified that provision. But then there's also court decisions that have said that provision or that nullification by the court should not be executed as of yet, and that matter has also been appealed by the National Assembly to set it aside. So invariably, it's a personal decision that they have to make. They run therefore the risk at the end of it all if the court does find that the National Assembly was well within its rights to make such a provision, and you have gone and contested an election whilst still being a political appointee, then you run the very, very, very serious risk of losing of your election being annulled, and not only you as a person, but you also put the party at risk, whatever party you belong to.
You heard the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Fenda Jabiemila, speaking with my colleague Juliana Olayinka in London. Is advising that if you are in office, according to the Electoral Act, it's safe to resign and not put your party in jeopardy. I'll allow Mr. Falana to give us his view on this and some more other legal issues, but we'll take a break. And when we come back, more legal issues to discuss. The 7 ministers, their fate as far as the law is concerned. The senior advocate is still with us. Still with us, everyone. We'll be right back. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us right here on the program. Let's continue our conversation with Mr. Femi Falana, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. Now, so a lot of issues are coming based on what you have unearthed now in respect of the section which affects 137. Someone will also ask, does it affect the vice president because he was acting president when the president was away?
At the first point, you were trying to ask for the provision.
Absolutely,
that provides for 2 terms. If you look at section 137.
137, yes. We talked about the 8 years.
As well as section 182 for governors.
For the governors.
But 137 for the president.
It was specific there.
With respect to...
Thank you.
I think a couple of times, Professor Shibajo acted for the president a couple of times. The case of Ladoja and INEC will be applicable. The Supreme Court made the point that while Governor Ladoja was out of office, his deputy, right,
was acting governor.
Was the governor of the state, and therefore it was the same mandate. So in this case, right, the Constitution provides that if the president will be away for not less than 21 days, right? Or more than 21 days, he has to transmit a letter to the National Assembly to declare that he has transferred powers to the
one can
vice president. So it's the same mandate, right? Yeah. It's not shared because the vice president and the president were jointly elected.
So what would not allow a person to spend more than 8 years is when he has taken an oath of office.
Yes, for that position.
So that's the only barrier.
Yeah, I mean, for instance, an acting president doesn't take a position because the president is still in office. So he doesn't take an oath to act. All that is required by virtue of section 145 is for the president to transmit a letter to the National Assembly. Once that letter is transmitted and is automatically the powers are transferred to the vice president on behalf to stand proxy for the president while the president is away. It's the same mandate. Unlike when the president dies or resigns from office or is impeached by the National Assembly, and the vice president now steps in as the acting president or the president of the country, the period spent will be counted at the end of the day.
Let me go to the Electoral Act, and as it affects 7 ministers, like the Minister for Transport, the Minister for Labor, and the Minister for State of Education, who have shown interest in running for the president of Nigeria. You heard what the Speaker of the House of Reps said, that look, it's safe for them to resign now so they do not cause trouble for their party in the nearest future. What are your thoughts as far as what Section 84 of the Electoral Act, we have there of the Electoral Act 2022 says?
Well, Section 84 of the Electoral Act.
It says no political appointee at any level shall be a voting delegate or be voted for at a convention or congress of any political party for the purpose of the nomination of candidates for any election. It says where section 11 says, subsection 11 says, where a political party fails to comply with the provisions of this act in the conduct of its primaries, its candidate for election shall not be included in the election for the particular position in issue. Subsection 12 says, notwithstanding the provisions of this act or rules of a political party, an aspirant who complains that any of the provisions of this act and the guidelines of a political party have not been complied with in the selection of or nomination of a candidate of a political party for election may apply to the Federal High Court for redress.
Well, these are very serious provisions that cannot be, discountenanced for any political party that wants to participate in the 2023 general elections. Because what those provisions are talking about, and the penalty is very serious, which is that you may not be allowed to feed candidates if you violate those provisions. For me, to be honest with you, I think the provisions are rather draconian.
Within the Electoral Act?
Frankly speaking, because, if somebody is holding a political office or a political appointee and you want to participate in the primary or even in the election, frankly speaking, all I think should be done is to ask you to apply for leave of absence so that you do not use the machinery of the office to manipulate the process, because this is the basis of this provision.
The intent of the
whereby legislators felt that chief executives were using the instrumentality of the state to manipulate the electoral process and decide who will contest for what position. That was why they made the law. But again, you must think of those who are victims. And that is why it will be ideal, because for civil servants, right, political office holders, right, the Constitution is saying you apply for a month. You resign a month before the election. Now, if you do not want to allow political appointees to enjoy such constitutional provision, what you should do perhaps is to say, okay, quit off, and apply for leave of absence so that you go and participate. If you win the positions you are contesting for, you won't come back to the office. Or if you lose, you should be able to come back. But as far as the law is concerned today, the position is that if you are a minister or a political appointee, you have to resign. An attempt was made by the Attorney General, the Office of the Attorney General, to obtain an order in the Federal High Court sitting in Umuahia, Abia State, whereby that provision was annulled. As I did point out, that was the judgment. I'm sure the judge was not informed by the lawyer representing the Attorney General that the Federal High Court before then had granted an order restraining the Attorney General, the President, and the National Assembly leaders from tampering with the provisions of Section 84. And that indeed another case filed in Ibadan, because the one in Abuja was filed by the PDP. Another case filed in Ibadan, the judge dismissed, struck out the case for lack of local standard. The judge in Abia was not informed as required by law. Oh, we have this case in Abuja. We also have a similar case in Ibadan, right? Because the case in Abia was a gross abuse of process. But as far as that judgment is concerned today, the Court of Appeal has stayed the execution. It's execution. And so we are back to status quo ante bellum.
So the law is as it is.
The law stands as of today. And so any party, therefore, any political party that disregards the
provision of the Section 82,
stands a risk.
Section 84 rather.
Stands a risk.
But those who argue, Mr. Falana, that there is a conflict between the provision of this Section 84 and the provision of the Constitution, and the debate over public officers, the issue of political appointee. Political appointee, that is what the Electoral Act provides. In the Constitution, it provides for public offices. And the argument is, who is a public officer?
No, there are decisions of our courts again.
Yeah.
Court of Appeal
that provides for 1 month before,
there are decisions of the Court of Appeal and the Supreme Court on who a public officer is, or who a political appointee is. And one of the several cases, the case of Shegun and, Dr. Kayode Fayemi, right? Whereby Dr. Fayemi was contesting election in Ekiti as a former minister, and it was alleged, or Shegun challenged his participation in the election on the ground that he didn't resign at least a month to the election. And the court drew a line of dichotomy, right, between a political appointee and a political office holder, right? So you have civil servant provided for by the Constitution that you must resign 1 month before the election. But for political appointees, which was not captured in the Constitution, the National Assembly, as it were, is claiming to have filled the vacuum by now saying for political appointees, this is what should be done. Again, as I said,
someone like Senator Christine, you guys argued that is covered by the Constitution. The provision.
No, he's not a civil servant.
No, he's saying that he draws money. He gets paid.
No, he's not a civil servant. I mean, he knows better. He's not a civil servant, and
so he's not covered under the Constitution.
No, the Constitution has declared who a political officer is, or a civil servant. Is covered by Section 318 of the Constitution. So he's not, and there are decisions of the court. So, and that's why this gentlemen will have to seek proper legal advice so that they are not misled.
Including some who may have not only presidential ambition, but governorship ambition.
And others, Again, as I said, I'm not very comfortable, for somebody who defends the rights of people,
But it is what the law says.
It's like if you're a lecturer, you want to contest election, you simply ask for leave of absence, So if you win the election, so be it. If you lose, you come back to your job, But again, as I said, that is the position of the law until the Court of Appeal or the Supreme Court, makes a pronouncement on the matter, a definitive pronouncement. That is the state. So you can't take a risk for now. You have to deal with the law as it is, as opposed to what the law should be.
Mr. Falana, I wouldn't want us to end this conversation without talking about the cost of nomination forms. We did a table recently making a comparison of about 5 political parties. And I'd like to get your view on the implication. The different political parties have defended their reason, and that's it on the screen right there, from APC to PDP to SDP, YPP, and the PRP. And they have defended the position and their reasons for having an amount such as that for their nomination form. But let me get your view on this.
Those outrageous nomination fees are immoral, insensitive, and illegal. I'm telling you.
Illegal?
Oh yes.
Under what part of our law is it?
Section 14 of the Constitution provides for participatory democracy. Article 13 of the African Charter on Human and People's Rights Act provides that. Article 13.1 provides that every person shall be entitled to participate directly or indirectly in the politics of his or her country. We'll come again, go back to the Constitution. Section 42 provides that nobody shall be subjected to any restriction or discrimination on the basis of class, fashion, sex, or whatever. So if you say, as these parties are saying, oh, we want to exclude unserious people, we don't want everybody to contest. So if you cannot mobilize 100 million or 40 million, you cannot attain, you cannot apply for some positions in your country. That is discriminatory and it's illegal, because no restriction can be erected to prevent you from participating in the politics of the country.
Right.
So, because you are now saying that the politics of the country is for money bags or fat cats, that's against the spirit and the letter of the Constitution. Now, the immorality of it is that we have over 90 million Nigerians that have been classified poor in a country where the minimum wage of 30,000 naira is not paid by some state government. So you can't say you are collecting 100 million naira to purchase a form or 40 million naira. And I have said publicly, and nobody has challenged me, those fees are the highest in the world.
Mr. Falana, we're totally out of time. I must sincerely thank you tonight for your thoughts and your views on these issues. Thank you so much indeed.
Thank you so much for your patience to watch from the beginning to the end. I hope you have learned something from the video you have just watched. The video you have just watched is to bring information to your doorstep and for educational purpose. It is not to demonize anybody. Let us watch continuously and see who can be able to make a sense out of every nonsense we are seeing. We must continue. We move. It doesn't matter what they do. It doesn't matter what they say. They will kill us. We'll kill them. At the end of the day, Biafra is here. Thank you for watching. If you have not subscribed to the channel, please kindly subscribe to the channel. Click the notification bell so that you'll be notified each time I upload a video. You will be among the first to receive it. Thank you and remain blessed. Bye-bye. See you again.